I'll talk to you later.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
How are you?
Thank God.
Oh, Hashem.
Here we go. Okay. So it says in 24. Is that where we are? Yes. Says writes the Roshi says בתשובה, says בית יוסף. כלל ו' ציבור שיש להם ליתן לרב או לשליח ציבור. So this is like interesting halakha. Let's say the community doesn't have enough money to hire both a chazan and to hire a rabbi. So the question is, which comes first, right? Which takes priority? The rabbi comes first or the chazan? This is the question that he's asking here. So it says the Rosh like this. If he's an expert rabbi, right? So what does that mean? He knows a lot of Torah. He knows a lot of halakha. He knows dinim. He knows between man and his fellow, choshen mishpat, monetary law. Talmid chacham kodem. So then, if that's the case, the rabbi comes first. So the rabbi comes first before the chazan. When is that? Only when he's an expert in halakha. He knows Torah very well.
Kabbalah Halacha, I'm sorry. An expert, do you mean a posek halacha or?
Yeah, that's what it means. I mean, more or less, because expert, that posek is expert, I mean, that's what it is.
Humbly speaking, I guess it's the expert would be, more modest than saying a posek, no, perhaps? In terms as, yeah, right?
Okay, yeah, no, I understand what you're asking about.
Because sometimes, I'm sorry, we read, okay, an expert, okay, somebody who doesn't know anything like myself, then you're like, okay, an expert. In my eyes, any rabbi could look at an expert, but is he really a posek or no?
So that's the thing, that if he's expert, that means he's a posek. That's what it really means.
Okay, thank you.
That means that he can answer you any question you ask him, like anything you ask, he can find the answer for you or have it right on his hand, under his sleeve.
Okay.
He's got everything up his sleeve, or either up his sleeve or he just has to look inside a book. He knows where to find it, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And so he's, he knows the stuff inside out.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification.
So why is that so important? The reason is because when you have somebody like that, it's invaluable, because you can ask him any question, and he'll answer it for you. So, who can be better than that? Because, there's a rule like this, by the way, that who do you have to honor more, your parents or your rabbi? So they say the Chazal, the rabbi comes first. Why? Because the parents brought you to this world, Olam Hazeh, but the rabbi is bringing you to Olam Haba.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So he's better than your parents.
Yes.
So you have to honor him more than you honor your parents.
Yes.
So same thing over here, that a person who's bringing you to Olam Haba, because he's telling you always what's halakha.
Mm-hmm.
So what can be better than that? Obviously that's more important than some chazan, with a good voice. He knows how to, sing, oh, okay, that's very nice, but your voice is not going to get me into Olam Haba. You know what I mean? With all due respect.
And
your voice is. I mean, yes, it might.
I'm sorry. What was that again?
So, depends on how good your voice is. It might.
It might. Okay, yeah, I get the point. I get it. Okay, well, I'm not going to put myself in that category. That's for sure.
And are all rabbis posek or?
Well, it's really funny you ask this question because, when I came from Israel and I moved here, so I was reminded, an unpleasant reminder, that most of the rabbis here in America don't know anything about halakha.
Mm.
So they're not really expert, in halakha. Most of the rabbis here. So, it's just like they're not even, they're rabbis only in name, basically, we call that, right? There's a joke, it's like we call him a spiritual leader. He's a spiritual leader, quote unquote, but he's not a chacham. He's not a,
And what does it really mean being a rabbi then in that case?
I guess smicha.
That's the thing. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing that, rabbi has different definitions in different places. You know what I mean?
Chabad makes rabbis out of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every male that makes it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Whatever. But the point is like this. That sometimes being a rabbi has a very low bar. Sometimes has a very high bar, depending on where you studied.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So some people, some places, nowadays, right? There's something funny on Facebook. One time, there's this one guy there who's Hasidic guy on Facebook. A friend of mine. He's a young fellow, just got married. So he was telling people on Facebook that he says I'm learning now for a smicha program online. He's going to become a rabbi online. Can you imagine? So how nice, right? We're going to make him a rabbi online.
So that's my question.
So something like that, who studies online for 2 years. You know what I mean? Not exactly a big Talmid Chacham, this guy. He's just an amateur, basically. He's just getting his feet wet.
But don't some people get their smicha and they teach Torah?
There's also rabbis. Yeah.
Or they're mashgiachs, or, don't they have other roles, though?
Yeah, that's the thing, that rabbi gets defined in different ways, in different places, whatever. But, there's a funny thing, there's like a joke like this. If you look in the phone book of Brooklyn, very Jewish area, right? Very high concentration of Jews there in Brooklyn, right? So, half the Jews over there are called rabbi, if there's 500,000 Jews in Brooklyn, 250,000 are called rabbi. You know what I mean? So,
are the rest of them Rebbitzin?
Well,
a good thing and a bad thing about this discussion.
Yeah.
The bad thing is that my parents are both dead, untimely. The good thing is I don't have to choose between them and you.
Well, I see what you mean. Yes, sometimes there's an emotional attachment to your parents,
Yeah.
I can understand that, but but the truth is, that the real definition of a rabbi, is like what we're saying over here, that he knows halakha.
And for that, you have to go to Israel, correct?
Well, no, there were big rabbis, Ramosha Feinstein, he never studied in Israel, but he was a pretty good rabbi. Not too bad, right? He never studied in Israel. He studied in Russia. He became a rabbi in Russia. So, it's not, Israel is the best place, of course, to study. Obviously, nothing compares to Israel. But you can also become a pretty good rabbi outside of Israel if you really try.
But you do have to attend to yeshiva physically, yes?
Well, yeah, of course. That's what you're saying is 100% correct. 100% correct. But besides that, you have to have a Masorah. That's very important. You know what a Masorah is?
Tradition.
Tradition, exactly. In other words, somebody has to train you to become a rabbi.
Okay. Thank you.
Some rabbis are like self-made, like very big geniuses, But most people can't do that. Most people can't make themselves into a rabbi. They need somebody to guide them, They need guidance. So, the rabbi can only be as good as the person who trained him. In general, that's the way it is. Generally. So if he wasn't trained by somebody good, he himself was also not going to be so good. You can pretty much assume that's that's the way it is, whatever, there's a whole discussion we can have about that, but bottom line is like this, right? That if a person, what's really called a Talmid Chacham, says the Bet Yosef, by the way, about this. The Bet Yosef paskins this halacha in Yoredea, the laws of Talmud Torah over there. What's called Talmid Chacham? That in his generation, he's considered to be like somebody that you can come and ask questions to. He'll answer any question you ask him. If you have somebody like that, he's called Talmid Chacham. A real rabbi. The rest of them are just like playing, what we call that, right? Air guitar. It's not the real guitar. They're playing air guitar. You know what I mean?
Right, but arriving
as if.
But arriving to the final halakha, that's a huge responsibility, because if he pretends to, then he's bringing death to the world, is it not?
Yeah, you're right what you're saying, absolutely. We talked about that. We posted several things about that, as you probably remember. But anyway, right, bottom line is, if you're not on that level, you ain't not such a big rabbi, like don't kid yourself.
Okay.
It's interesting how 40 years ago you were the leader, and now you're the leader.
I say just the opposite. I wasn't a leader then. I'm not a leader now either.
And 40 years ago, you played the real guitar, and I played air guitar.
You make me laugh. Oh my God, you make me laugh. Well, I did play guitar in the good old days. That was a good time. But anyway, what do you call it? And by the way, you're a pianist. Believe me, he's not any less than me. He's probably 10 times better. This humble young man here. He's quite a musician.
Well, the music that we were inspired by is a guitar-dominated music.
I understand.
So I still aspire to the guitar.
The truth is, I consider you to be a top-notch musician, David. Top-notch, no question about it.
Listen to your music one day.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk about this some other time. But anyway, the point is like this, right? That's what a chacham really is. A chacham is somebody who knows halakha. There are writings from the Chazon Ish about this also. The Chazon Ish, who was one of the big chachamim of our generation. He also writes this, that only a person who knows halakha is considered to be a Talmid Chacham. He says, even if he knows Talmud very well, let's say, he knows Talmud. And he knows Musar, he knows Kabbalah, whatever, right? Kabbalah. Ashkenazim don't talk about Kabbalah, right? Everything is secret. Nobody talks about Kabbalah in the Ashkenazim, what I mean? They don't mention that word. Like for them, it doesn't exist, like what Kabbalah? What's that? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? So, but anyway, right? The point is that says the Chazon Ish, even if he knows all the other disciplines, but he doesn't know halakha, he's not considered to be Talmid Chacham.
Yeah, he talks about it in the Emunah and Bitachon, I think.
Oh, there you go. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There you go. So what else can we say, right? And by the way, all these rabbis are getting their words from the same source. It's all coming from the Talmud and from Shulchan Aruch and Bet Yosef. It all comes from there. I mean, so what else? What else can we add to that? There's nothing to add. So that's why they say, by the way, just to give you a piece of good advice, if somebody comes to your town, right, to Dallas or right? Somebody comes to Florida, right? Comes there, Hollywood, right? Wherever you are there, whatever it may be. And they say, oh, there's a Mekubal that came, some tzaddik, some Adamor. He came to bless you, whatever. And everybody runs and flocks to this guy, right? Thinking that, oh my God, he's like God's angel, But the truth is, most of these people who advertise themselves as Admorim and Babbas and all kinds of things like this, or Mekubal. Usually they don't know nothing, these people. They're totally Amaretz. They don't know nothing. They don't know nothing about Halakha. They don't know nothing about Kabbalah. They don't know nothing about nothing. Because a person who's a real Chacham never calls himself a Mekubal or, something like this, No such a thing like that. People don't use these names, with the big rabbis don't even call themselves these names. I mean, they don't deal with that stuff. So, there's a book, by the way, by Rabbi Yaakov Hillel, who's a big rabbi in Jerusalem. He learns Kabbalah. He studies Kabbalah. He has a Rosh Yeshiva there, and he has a big yeshiva there. The yeshiva is called Ahavat Shalom. So he has a book, which is called in English it's called Faith and Folly. That's the way they translate it into English. There's a book like this called Faith and Folly. In Hebrew, it's called, I'll remember the name. But anyway, the point is like this, right? He writes over there that it's not possible for a person to be a Kabbalist if he doesn't know first, the Pshat, the basic Torah. So if he never went through that, he never studied Kabbalah, he never studied Halakha, he never studied Talmud, there's no way that he could be a Kabbalist. No such a thing like that. No such animal. You know what I mean? Just remember the name now in Hebrew, right? It's called Tamim Tiheh, this book. Tamim Tiheh. In English, it's called Faith and Folly. Totally different name, by the way. But that's how they translated it. Whatever it was. So that's the thing, So there's only one way to be a gadol in Torah, to be a big person in Torah, is to learn Talmud and Halakha. That's the only way to. There's no other. There's no.
Rabbi, you remember? You remember? In I think it was '89. In '89 or early '90s, when the Lubavitcher Rabbi went in.
We lost you there, David. What happened? What did you say again?
I'm sorry, my internet is horrible. Was it in '89 or early '90s when the Lubavitcher Rabbi went into a coma?
Okay. Perhaps. And therefore what? We lost you. Okay, we lost him. Okay, I hope the Lubavitch Rebbe didn't get mad at you. You cut out your internet there. Okay. Okay, so anyway, right, as we said, when you come back, let us know.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, they were waiting.
What was the question again?
They were waiting for the Lubavitcher Rabbi to return as the Messiah.
Oh, right. Yes, of course. Well, yeah, that's a different story. We're not going to get into now messianic talk now. We're not get into that now. That's not the issue here. But anyway, right? That's what Talmid Chacham really means. That according to Bet Yosef, according to the Poskim. By the way, the Chafetz Chaim also says the same thing. Wherever you look, you're going to find the same recipe. There's no other recipe there. So as we said, right, just to reiterate, to recap this, that if you have a choice of taking a Chazan or a Chacham, if the Chacham knows Halakha, he's expert, knows his stuff, Gadol in Torah, he knows his stuff, generally very knowledgeable. So then, of course, the Chacham comes first. But he says, if he's not that big, Shliach Tzibur Adif, then it's better to take a Chazan. then the Chazan is better. So in other words, if you have like a half-baked rabbi, who doesn't know halacha, and he's just like a darshan, he says drashot, he says nice words, he inspires people, he's very inspirational. One of those feel-good rabbis, Oh, I'll tell you something and you'll feel good. That's it, right? You'll feel inspired. We don't care about being inspired. We don't care about that. The Chazan is better than him.
They call it Care Bear rabbis.
Okay. I'm sure there's a lot of good names for that, right? Whatever. Okay. So, right, yeah, feel good rabbi, somebody who makes you feel good. And by the way, there's also the other types, the morbid rabbis, right? The ones who always tell you you're going to hell, you'll be in hell in no time. Believe me, by the time midnight comes, you'll be in hell. They'll tell you, right? Day and night, that's what they tell you. They don't know anything else. There's the feel good rabbis, they'll tell you, oh yeah, you're so good. And then there's the morbid rabbis, right? To tell you, you're going to the grave, you're going to destruction, right? One of these rabbis, doomsday, right? Doomsday rabbis, that's what we call them, right? There's also those types of rabbis. That's not a real rabbi. Those two types of rabbis. The real rabbi is somebody who knows halakha, So, therefore, those are not called Talmidei Chachamim, these people. Even though they're very famous on the internet, by the way, on the internet, they're considered to be the cool rabbis, right? They're the coolest rabbis on the internet. But in the eyes of Hashem, they're not worth much. I mean, that's the way it is. So you have to understand that. Okay. By the way, I can just tell you, I was Zoche, Baruch Hashem, for 15 years to be with the great rabbi of the generation, Maran, Rav Ovadia. Nobody was like him, believe me, I tell you. Nobody came to his toenails. This is this man. I've seen a lot of big rabbis in my life, and he never spoke this way to people. Doomsday predictions. You're going to hell. You're going to Gainam. You're going, or he was not a feel-good rabbi. You're so good. God bless you. Oh, I'm so proud of you. There was never any of that stuff with the rabbi. All there was is the Torah, What does it say in the Talmud? What does it say in the Bet Yosef? What does it say in the Rambam? What does it say in the Rosh? What does it say in the Rif? What does it say in the Shulchan Aruch? What does it say in the Mishnah Berurah? That's all he cared about. He didn't care about any of this feel good or feel bad, these kinds of things. This was never part of the recipe there. So you see from there, by the way, that this is not a real Chacham, who speaks this way. Emphasizes too much, either the positive or the negative, or just say the Torah. People don't need your exaggerations. Just tell them the Torah, what it says in the Torah. That's all you need to do. No, that's all Hashem. That's all Hashem wants from you. Just give over the Torah to them. That's what it's all about. Okay, very good. We got the idea. So. So then the question is like this, right? But what about, okay, so the rabbi, inspires me, he's a good darshan, he says some good things, he brings some nice ideas, he inspires me. So why is a chazan better than him? This is the question, right? Because according to halakha, the chazan comes before him. So why is that? So he says like this, right? So he says, if not so, he's not so big in Torah, then the chazan is better. Why? Because at least, he fulfills the obligation of the prayers for the people. In other words, he's doing something concrete, not some just inspiring you. He's actually doing something for you in reality. That's more important. Right? So it says the Rabbeinu also wrote this, the tour in your day. Okay, very good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch on this. So it says in Shulchan Aruch like this, right? Tzibur shetzrichim liskor rav, v'shliach tzibur. Let's say you have a community, right? They need a rabbi and they need a chazan. Then be'adam kedei l'sachar shneim, but they don't have enough money for both of them, right? Maybe next year they'll have enough money, but now they don't have. It's not in the budget, right? Im hu rab mubhak begadol b'torah ubaki b'hora'ah. So it says Maran, if he's a big chacham, big posek, like we said, right? That's what he's saying over here. Hora means posek. You can paskin for you halacha. Who kodem? So then he comes first. Veim lav. If he's not on that level, shliach tzibur kodem. Then the chazan comes first. Why is that? As we said, right? Because the chazan at least does something concrete. He fulfills the obligation of the prayers for the community. But a rabbi who inspires you, what did he do concretely for you? What did he concretely do for you? Did he tell you how to do something in halacha? Not really. So he doesn't know these things. So what does he help you? Unfortunately, I don't want to mention any names, but I see, a lot of rabbis here, in America. The problem is, that they do say halacha, they come, but they do more damage with that than good. You know why? Because they say the wrong halacha. They don't know how to figure out the halacha. So they come to the wrong conclusions, So when people ask them a question, they read between the lines, but they don't know what's between the lines. So because of that, they come to the wrong conclusions. They misguide people, and because of that, people are suffering, right? Like Buria said, right? That this causes people to die, chas v'shalom. So it's a big issue. No. So what it is? If you don't know halacha, better you shouldn't teach halacha at all. Just read from the book. Whatever it says. If there's a good book, you got a good book. Take the Yalkut Yosef and just read it, but don't read between the lines. This you're already getting into trouble. You're getting into hot water there. So you got to be careful. Okay, very good. Let's go on. So it says in the Bet Yosef, Katav Rashba, says the Rashba in Tshuva the Rashba, Shechazan en mesalkin oto miumanuto ela im ken nimtza bo pisul. Look what he says, unbelievable, right? So he says we don't remove a chazan from his job unless we find something in him, some kind of blemish, he's not doing his job properly. And he says, and there has to be proof for that. The old Ditnan, it says, furthermore, as it says in the Mishnah, Gitin Nun Tet Amud Bet, Amud Aleph, Me'arvin b'bayit yashan mipnei darchei shalom. Ve'okimna be'gemara. So it says like this, right, in the Mishnah. The Gemara explains, what does this mean? Mishum chashda. Oh, so let me explain to you what this means, right? It's a little bit off the topic, but we have to understand. So it says in the Mishnah like this, that we make an eruv in an old house because of peaceful relations. So Gemara says over there, what does that mean? Mishum chashta, because there may be, if you don't do it, it's going to be some kind of a suspicion there. So what does this have to do with our discussion? Well, let me hold off on that for a second, and then we'll come back to that. So it says, but he says he himself wrote that in his times, the custom was to appoint people al tzorchei hatzibur for the needs of the community, lizman, for a certain amount of time. Right? He was under contract, right? Let's say for 4 years, right? They hired him for 4 years. And then when the time came, the contract was up. So they would get rid of this one and bring another one, alternate. תחתיהם. בין לחזן, בין לקופה של צדקה. Whether it's the chazan or it's the charity, whatever. וכן על המס, also taxes, ושאר מינויים, all kinds of things like this, appointments, הצריכים לציבור, that people need this, בין שנוטלים עליהם שכר, whether they get paid, בין שאינם נוטלים עליהם שכר, or they don't get paid. אפילו לא קבעו להם זמן, even if they didn't make a time for them, סתמן כפירושן, so he says, אחר שנהגו כך, since the custom is to get rid of them every few years, we can get rid of them anyway. That's what he says, right? Yeah. So now, in other words, that was a custom in those days. They used to hire somebody for a limited amount of time, like term limits, like we have today, we have in politics, right? In America, the president can only be for 8 years, right? So the Chazan was the same thing, right? Term limits, 8 years maximum, then we get rid of you, bring somebody else, even if you're a good guy, you may be a nice guy, but it's time to refresh, do a restart. We got to do a restart a little bit. It's not a bad idea, actually, there's something good about that. Interesting. Yeah.
What's the positive thing about that?
Okay, let me ask you a question, right? You ask me a question, I'll ask you a question, and ask you a question with a question.
Oh no.
Right? My question to you is like this. Why do they have term limits for president? What's the reason why?
Well, so people can elect somebody who does a better job, but maybe the new person might not, will go backwards, so.
Yeah, but maybe the guy's already doing a good job. So what do we need somebody new?
I don't know.
You know what the answer is? The answer is because the founding fathers of this nation, right? God bless their souls. They actually were smart people, these people. Mm-hmm. So their intention was like this, that if you let the president go too long, he's going to get corrupted, too powerful, Power corrupts. Mm-hmm. So once he's in office for too long time, he gets too powerful.
Okay.
Right, this is what happened in Russia, right? Look what you have in Russia today. Mm-hmm. He's been in there too long, 20 years already he's been there, and he's making everybody crazy, destroying the whole world. Mm-hmm. This is what happens when somebody gets too powerful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know what I mean? So the same thing also in shul, in the synagogue, when somebody gets too much power, they get corrupted. This is what happens.
Can this really happen in from a religious point of view?
For sure, no question about it. No question about it. Anybody can become corrupted. You know what happens? I'll tell you from experience. I can tell you that what happens is that when the rabbi, some rabbi is there too long, or a chazan, or whatever, what happens is that he makes connections with all kinds of people, and there goes on some bribery going on there, money trading, bribery, favors, returning favors. It becomes like a racket.
Okay.
Understand? This is what happens, and it happens in religion too. Believe me, and not only in politics. Unfortunately, this is the way it is today. Okay. So this is the reason why we don't want somebody there too long.
Okay.
Refresh, restart, right? Brings fresh blood.
I guess it also brings opportunity to others, no? To be able to.
That's also true. That's also true. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I guess so.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's the story, yeah. Okay, so he goes on to say here. So he says, since that's the minhag, to do it this way, it becomes halacha, The minhag is to switch people every time. By the way, David, what do you say? Maybe we should do that also in our shul? Switch people around a little bit there. Time has come, no? Okay, he's a little bit busy there. So, okay. So anyway, so he said, so if it's because of suspicion, בצורכי הציבור, ואחר כך מסתלקים ובאים האחרים תחתיהם. So it's also, there's no problem here with, with suspicion. So what does that mean? What does it mean, suspicion? It means that, when you switch somebody, and get somebody new, people always are going to say, oh, what happened with the old guy? Why'd they remove him? Maybe, he was corrupted or whatever. Maybe he did something wrong, so they're going to start like suspecting him of something wrong. So therefore, right, this is the reason why they don't want to do that. But here he says it's not a problem. Why? Because since they know that this is the custom of the community, they're not going to suspect him of anything. If so, din mamon enkan chashad enkan ad kan hashana. It says so. Therefore, he says there's no issue here, whether it's suspicion or monetary issues, no problem here. Ad kan hashana. U'tshuva zo besof sefer kolbo. So he says this tshuva is brought in the end of the sefer kolbo. Besof sefer kolbo. It says at the end of this book, timsa shelot v'tshuvot al shliach tzibur. He says also you'll find other responses about this topic. About Chazan, when is it proper to remove the Chazan? In other words, if he did something wrong, right? How corrupted does he have to be to remove him? Very interesting. And when is it proper to just keep him, not to remove him? So he talks about that over there, he says. Carries on at length about that. Okay, very good. That's the end of the chapter. Oh, good. Okay, so now we're going to get to the...
we should definitely switch some people there, but...
Oh, there you are. Okay.
No, I heard... Yeah, I heard you, but we broke up in the
okay.
In the interim. But who's going to take charge? They're all corrupt.
Yeah, we definitely need a we definitely need a refresh there. Don't you agree? Okay. Got you hear our voice. All right, so here we go. Let's see the Shulchan Aruch. So it says, "En masalkin chazan meumanuto." Look what it says, right? We don't remove the chazan from his job, unless something was found in him, some kind of incompetence or corruption there, something wrong. Otherwise, you shouldn't remove him. So what does that mean? He's doing a good job, so why remove him? You shouldn't do that. It's not nice to do that. We already said, right, if the custom is to do that, it's okay. But here he's talking about when the custom is not like that. If the custom is not to remove them and to, why would you want to replace him for no reason? There's no reason to do that. Because, he's making a living out of that. It's his livelihood, right? So you can't take away his livelihood. So says the Rama, look what he says, Rama, right? We saw this in Bet Yosef already. He says you shouldn't remove the Chazan because of some kind of a rumor, People are like, whispering about him, Did you hear what he did? Oh my God, he did this and this and that, right? So if there's rumors going around, we don't remove him. Why? Because there's nothing concrete. Rumors are not concrete. So you can't act on rumors, That's not enough to... You need witnesses. So let's go on. So he says... Oh, there you go, right? Oh my God. So he says, let's say there was, there was a rumor about him, that he's going with a shiksa, going with a non-Jewish girl, right? Oh my God. Lord save us. Right? He's going with a shiksa. Oh my God. So if there's a rumor like that, he went with a shiksa, we don't remove him unless you can prove it, you need two witnesses for that. Or let's say there's a rumor that he, he informed on somebody. He went to the government, right? Informed. So if there's a rumor like that, but people don't really know if that's true. They suspect him, but they don't know it's true. You can't remove him because of suspicion. That's not enough. So continues the Rama, right? Im ba'u alav edim bezeh, right? Aval im ba says, but if they came witnesses, right? The Rama says, oh, that's a different story already, right? Things like this, there's actual proof, right? That's a different story. Ma'avinon. So then we do remove him, right? So what does that mean? If two witnesses come and say, oh, this Chazan, he went with a shiksa. So, if two witnesses came and said that in the Bet Din or whatever, we remove him. Right? Or let's say they told us, the witnesses, he shaves with a razor, this guy. Oh my God. So if there's two witnesses that he shaves with a razor, we remove him. Otherwise, we assume that he's using Norelco. Okay. All right, let's go on. So he says, Shliach tzibur hamnabel piv o shemeranen. Right. So says the Rama here something funny, interesting. Let's say you have a shliach tzibur chazan, right, and he's got a dirty mouth. He says, 4-letter words, the F word and this word and all kinds of words like this, What kind of chazan are you? You're praying to Hashem and then you start with your 4-letter words? Shame on you. How is Hashem going to listen to you if you speak this way? How is Hashem going to hear your prayers when you speak those 4-letter words? Oh my God. By the way, I think I posted this from the Zohar like a while ago. No. It says there, that a person who uses, foul language like that, which is called nivul peh, Hashem doesn't hear his voice for a long time, 45 days or something, right? Doesn't listen to his prayers.
But those words are made up words. I mean, they're slangs.
Right. But you know what it is? That Hashem doesn't like very much that Jews speak this way. He very much hates it.
Mm.
He doesn't like that. What's the reason why, by the way? What's the reason why? The reason is because it has dirty connotations, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Can it also
going into the gutter, basically, right? That's what it is. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can it also be because I've read somewhere there that it also brings destruction to the world? No, it arises a certain entity, and that's what the Chafetz Chaim, I think, says.
Yeah, well, it says in the it says that young people die because of this. Youngsters, they die because of the sin of foul language.
Meaning the one who spoke or the one who listened being young?
Even other young people.
They pay for that. Oh my God.
Can you imagine? So it's a very big thing. You have to be careful, don't speak those 4-letter words. By the way, there are some words that are better and worse than others. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really not every word, is really such a big thing, but there are some words that are really bad, so you have to be careful. Which are the ones that are really bad? The ones that, have a connotation of sexual, misconduct. That's what we're really talking about. Those are the foul, that's the real foul language,
Well, God created sex. I mean, there's nothing dirty about sex.
Yeah, you're right. But, that's why I said misconduct.
Yeah.
In other words, making it to some kind of a, it's like.
Oh, you're talking about the way we Georgians curse.
I don't know. I'm Georgian. I don't curse like that. But you shouldn't speak for everybody.
You
don't include everybody in this.
No. But Georgian cursing is very elaborate. It's like poems.
Every language has its own poems, but
yeah. And I didn't mean you, God forbid, but
no, I understand. But whatever.
Street people.
Street people. Yeah. So you got to be careful about that. Don't speak those 4-letter words. Take them out of your vocabulary. Remove them from your vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. You got to remove those things. If you want to be a respectable person, respect yourself first, you know? Okay, good. So we got that idea. Now, right? So says Rama, the person, if a chazan, you know, uses those like, you know, foul language. Or another thing is, look what he says, right? That he sings, you know, like these dirty songs, you know, like the Goyim sing, you know, all kinds of dirty lyrics, you know? And he goes around, you know, snapping his fingers and, you know, saying those dirty things, you know, that they say in those songs. You shouldn't do that. That's not proper to do that, obviously, right? So he says, what do we do with a guy like that? We remove him, you know, because he's making you know, desecrating the name of God like that, you know. You know what kind of words these people say, the Goyim, you know, in their songs, you know. Hashem should save us.
Kabul Hawaf, I do have a question in regards to the Hassan. Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When the Hassan doesn't have the proper apparel, let's say for when he's about to, you know, to recite Shacharit or the festivals,
Right.
and when he's off duty, does he have to be dressed up in a presentable manner? I assume yes, but you said that he had to be the way when he was you know, when he is going to do his job.
Yeah, well, you know, I see what you mean. You know, at least, you know, at the very least, he should dress properly when he comes to do his job. At least that much. You know?
And when he's off duty, he can dress up with whatever.
When he's at the beach, you know, and he's wearing shorts and you know, bathing suit. I don't care too much about that. That doesn't bother me.
No, not in the beach. Let's say, I don't know, they saw him walking somewhere and he just, you know.
As long as he's not in a mixed beach, you know, with ladies there, that's not allowed, you know.
Right.
That's not allowed.
Okay.
No mixed beaches. No mixed swimming. Right? Not allowed to do that.
David Lee Roth would make a good chazan.
Okay. His voice is gone already. It's gone. Nothing left. All right. I think his soul is also gone. That's already something else. It's a different issue. But actually, you know, he's a nice Jew. He's a God bless him. God bless him. I think he's you know, he used to be a bad boy, you know. He did some bad things, you know how it is. I hope he did tshuva on those things. Anyway, right? So yeah. So these things, you know, that we don't want these things in Chazan. That you know, speaks foul language, you know. He sings those dirty songs, you know. What kind of thing is that? Unfortunately, by the way, you know, in America, we've crossed that threshold. You know, in the old days, they used to be careful, you know, not to say these dirty words, you know, in programs. Now they say whatever they want, you know. There's no more censorship, no nothing. It just totally, the borders have been erased altogether.
Well, what do you mean dirty words? There's very few songs that actually, use the words. I mean, there's titillation.
What I mean to say is that it has like very strong sexual connotation.
Oh,
You know what I mean? You shouldn't sing songs like that, obviously. Okay, very good. And by the way, the truth is, you know, that a person shouldn't be singing, you know, any Goyish songs. What I mean to say is that I'm not talking about the melody, but the words, you know, because it's not proper for a Jew, you know, to be singing those silly, you know, lyrics. You know what I mean? Not really. I mean,
yeah.
They're silly, you know. I mean, I'm talking about here a little bit above the halakha, you know?
Yeah.
Because if it's not dirty, it's not so bad. But it's still, you know, it's the words of a goy, you know? It's not really the best thing to talk, you know, sing these songs. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
the lyrics in pop music have always been silly and never really meant much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's silly, it's silly stuff.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. Okay, so we got that, right? We got the idea. And by the way, I recently, like when I was here in America, I was invited to some weddings, and things like this. And there's like a famous Chazan, that works here in this community, a Sephardi guy, from Israel. He has an incredible voice. I don't want to mention his name. But he has an incredible voice. The guy sings like an angel. And everybody likes to bring him, to the wedding, to sing, at the chuppah. He's really amazing. But the problem is, that then he goes up on stage and he sings, these dirty, Israeli songs, these secular songs, love songs. It's not proper, if they should do that. It's a chazan, Chazan shouldn't be singing, these Israeli love songs, you know what I mean? It's not really, these dirty Israeli songs, That's not really the proper thing. Okay, you get the idea. So it goes on, let's go on, right? So something interesting he says here, right? That let's say the Chazan got older, right? He got old, and now he wants to appoint his son in his place, right? Come, my son, I'll give you my job, right? Come, I'll give you my position. Can he do that? Can he put his son there? Right. So first of all, he says like this, right? Let's say he wants to bring him in as an apprentice, like to do his job once in a while when he can't be there or whatever, or he's tired. Can he do that? To bring his son in? So he says, problem is like this, right? That his son's voice is really not so good, His voice is really good. His son is nothing to brag about. Right? So but he says if he can take his place when it comes to other issues, in other words, he's professional, he's well read, he pronounces properly things, but if his voice is not as good as his father's, so then his son comes first. He takes precedence over any other person. So there is a thing like this, halakha, that a person who has a position is allowed to appoint his son in that position if the son can do pretty much the job that he did, even though he's not as good as his father. He's not 100% as good, but pretty much he does the job, pretty much. He can appoint him. He comes first. He takes precedence over anybody else. And that's why, by the way, when he, when they had the elections for the chief rabbi, so he was supporting his son, Rabbi Yitzchak, and there was also other people that were running. So they asked the rabbi, like, why did you favor your son over us? Like, what your son is better than we are? Why do you always favor him? So he told him this halakha that we just saw here in the Ramah. He told him, he says, when a person, gets older and he's losing his job, he's retiring, the son comes first. If he can take his place, the son comes first. So he says, my son, is a pretty good rabbi. So, he comes first. So he told him, that's why I'm supporting my son. So there is a halakha like that. Right? Like it or not. That's the way it is. Why is that, by the way? What's the reason why? The reason is because it's like inheritance. You're inheriting your father's position because you inherit your father, So just like you inherit his money, you also inherit his position as well. There's an inheritance there. Okay, very good. So we got the idea. So I think we finished the whole parak here. We finished the chapter. Let me see if there's anything else left. I think there's something here. Yeah, there's one more. I'm sorry. We'll do one more Shulchan Aruch and we're done. So it says, what about if you have a community, right? We talked about this already with Yosef, that they appoint, these positions, Chazan, Rabbi, whatever, for a certain amount of time only, right? 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, term limits, By the way, this is exactly what's happening in Israel today. The chief rabbi, there's a term limit for 10 years, So now his term limit is coming up, Rabbi Yosef. Somebody else is going to have to take his place because he cannot continue. They're going to have elections, Somebody else will be elected. That's the way it works. So there are term limits also there. They already made this the law there, So here also we're talking about term limits. So the rule is like this, right? That when a time comes, this one leaves and somebody else comes and takes his place. That's the way it's done. Whether it's chazan, right, or whether it's the charity fund, ben bashar binuim, or also other types of appointments that people need. Ben shenotlin aleim schar, whether they get wages on it, ben shenam notin, or whether they don't get wages, doesn't make any difference. They're working as a volunteer, right? Afilu lo kavu bahem zman staman b'kipirushan. Even if they didn't specify in the contract, you're only working for 5 years. Doesn't matter, because since the custom is to do it this way, so therefore after 5 years he's out. Because that's the custom, Custom becomes halacha. So since that's the custom in that place, that's the way they do it. So therefore, every 5 years they're going to switch, right? Every 10 years, whatever it is, they're going to switch to somebody else. It goes on to Rama. Yesh mishkatav. So there is one that says the shliach tzibur itpalel mitoch sefer amiyuchad letzibur. Devadai nichtav lishmo. Oh, so it says the Rama something interesting, that there is one that says that the chazan should pray from a sidur, which is made for the community. In other words, it's a for chazan. Devadai nichtav lishmo, because it was written for him. Okay. It's a little detail, but today, by the way, you just go to the store and you buy these things, so nobody writes a sidur today for anybody. You know what I mean? So it's not really so common today, this halacha. In those days, the sidur was handwritten, Nowadays, it's just all, photocopies, so, we don't really care so much about this today. You just go to the store and you buy your sidur, right? And anybody who, has been around me, they know that I always take them to the store to buy some sidurim. In the end, right? when you hang around with me, eventually you're going to wind up buying a sidur. So that's the way it is. So but anyway, right? That's the way it is. So today we buy the sidur, and by the way, just give me a piece of good advice. When you buy a sidur, what's the most important thing? To buy a good sidur. Then it should have, like haskama, approbation of a good rabbi, that says that this sidur is accurate, it's good. Try to find something like that, because you never know who made the sidur, and you don't know if it's accurate. You don't know if it's proper, the things it says there. You don't know if the halachot are proper there. Who knows? But if it has approbation, it was checked by some rabbi, So then at least that, it was done in a professional manner. Right, so when you buy a sidur, try to buy something which has approbation, which is checked by somebody, checked by a chacham, to tell you to make sure that this sidur is on the ball. It's halachot, the text, everything is correct. Okay, very good. So God bless you. Have a good night. Laila tov. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Tomorrow we'll start a new chapter. It's a new beginning, right? As always, It's also right. I think tonight is when is Rosh Chodesh? Tonight, no?
Tomorrow, no, isn't it?
Tomorrow?
I think so.
Let me just check since I mentioned it.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Okay, very good. So we got Rosh Chodesh coming up, which is going to be, I guess, according to what you said. Right, it's going to be on Friday, yeah. Friday, Rosh Chodesh, Thursday night, Friday. Rosh Chodesh, ER. Okay, very good. So you have a good new moon, new Chodesh. Bezat Hashem, God bless you all. See you tomorrow. Chazak Baruch. All the best.